This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 481, Why Weakness Trumps Strength When Selling.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers. And before we get started, I just want to take a pause and to thank you. Sales Babblers have been reaching out to me for advice this past week, and it's been so rewarding to help them grow their selling skills. I'm so grateful for the support and to know for certain that this podcast, Sales Babble, is making a positive impact on businesses around the world, and more importantly, people's lives, like yourself. I'm humbled. Thank you for listening. And thank you for sharing what we do with others. And now, have you ever noticed that sometimes when selling, it's like playing a never-ending game of hide and seek? Except for the prospects, they're world champions in hiding what they truly want and truly desire. Just when you quote them a solution, that rug gets pulled out from under you, and before you know it, you got to restart. What a pain, right? With that said, it's easy to forget the golden rule, that he who has the gold rules. But lest we forget, since the buyers are the one with the money, it matters a whole lot more to them to get the decision right. Forcing them to make a decision with a show of strength and command is a misguided closing approach. More often than not, showing weakness versus strength is the ticket for success. But before we get into the topic, make sure and subscribe to the podcast on whatever app that you're listening to, and also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and myself on LinkedIn. You can find links in the show notes. And so, with no further ado, let's get to it. And now today's chapter. Weakness trumps strength. Some in sales think strength will win the day, but strength will break where weakness remains intact. An oak tree is stronger than a blade of grass, yet storms can uproot it in a moment while the grass remains. With flexibility, match the prospect's personality. Warm if they want warm, professional if they want professional. Follow their tone, speed, and pace, whatever they want, whatever they need. In deference, find strength, and in surrender, success. Chris returned to the office in frustration, and when seeing Pat said, "When I first met Lee's team, they told me their challenge, and I recommended Layout 1. It's the right choice. But then Lee changed the requirements, so I gave them a quote for Layout 2. Today, they changed requirements again, which sounds like a Layout 3. Yet I still think Layout 1's the right choice. It's so frustrating. This entire deal is turning out to be an act of self-flagellation." Pat couldn't help but laugh and said, "I can understand your impatience, but your strong conviction on quoting Layout 1 is jeopardizing your deal." "How so?" said Chris. "You're being inflexible. You forget that it's Lee's company that's paying for the product. You don't work there, nor do you have access to their books. It's presumptive for you to assume what's best for them." Chris blinked. Then Pat went on. "You need to be like water. Consider when you pour water into a container, it conforms and takes its shape. Instead of being stiff in our opinions, it's better to remain loose and supple during the negotiations." "I see," said Chris. "Yes," said Pat, "it's by yielding to the prospect's concerns, you create space for the solution to become self-evident. Relent for the opportunity of reward." In Chapter 76, Lao Tzu said, "Thus whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life." Not all deals are life and death situations, but deals do have a life of their own. And when we fail to accommodate the buyer, deals have a way of vanishing. The philosopher Albert Camus said, "Blessed are the hearts that can bend. They shall never be broken." This is also true for sellers. Being strong needn't mean being stiff. Sometimes strength can be found in weakening your grip. Now, to download a copy of this week's chapter of the Tao of Sales Babble, you can find it in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com. And while you're there, you can sign up for our brief weekly newsletter with links to the podcast conveniently placed in your inbox. I won't spam you, I promise. Next, if you could do me a favor and share this episode with a friend who's interested in growing their selling skills, please do. On whatever app you're using, subscribe to Sales Babble and share this episode with your friend, because word of mouth is the premier way of growing listeners. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, if you have any questions about sales, don't hesitate to reach out. Find me on LinkedIn or click the Babble Me link on the website. With that said, that's all I've got for this week. Until next Tuesday, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.